So I want to pitch an AI litmus test. Develop a set of prompts that matter to your context. Run them regularly as models update. Test AI representations of your field of expertise, your students' backgrounds, your local area, and document what changes between model versions, right?
We keep saying keep it human or stay the human in the loop. And this is how we do it. We take accountability for our interactions and our outputs.
So I think I've mentioned before that I was an early Mid-Journey, early Runway adopter, and I've made pretty extensive use of AI generation to, among other things, create versions of myself and colleagues for various contexts. So I sussed out an amazing face swap workflow with Mid-Journey and a plugin called Insight Face, really good. So I had a lot of fun with it. Me with my war face on the back of a T-Rex in the style of a Wes Anderson movie. I think it was the Royal Tenenbaums. My current one is me in good lighting and better lighting than this, and a $3,000 suit, right? So I've done it for colleagues as well, in armor, on horseback, and that sort of thing. So good times with the technology.
You'll have to send some of these through, Nick. I'm particularly interested in the Wes Anderson and you on the back of a T-Rex, just for my own personal collection.
Sweet. More recently, a conversation I had with a colleague in Vietnam, I'm based in Vietnam, sorry for context, Hanoi, completely changed how I see these tools. And I think that it's maybe a change, or it may change how educators in general think about AI integration as well. Dale, let me ask though, have you had any moments where AI showed you something uncomfortable that sort of, opened the box for your little on how these systems actually work?
Every day, I think. But do you remember Loab? There was this AI-generated woman called Loab who kept appearing in as horror images. The thing that really was gross is that it was never requested. So the AI wasn't actually I think it was Hugging Face that was doing it. And it wasn't actually about it being evil and hallucinating. It was just doing math. It kind of found that in millions of human-made images, certain faces were statistically more likely to appear next to violence.
Yeah.
So the AI doesn't actually understand bias. It just kind of averages our data and we kind of influence the bias, as it were. So when we see Loab, we're not seeing artificial intelligence kind of gone wrong. We're seeing a mirror. So it's kind of a mathematical mirror of every horrible bias we've collectively put into the world. So the AI isn't the problem here. We kind of are. It's just really good at showing us exactly who we are when you kind of strip away all the social niceties.
Yep.
And the thing that used to probably keep you up at night, not that the systems are too smart, but that they're just smart enough to kind of reflect the worst parts of what we are back at us. So that's where I got to. That's the black hole I looked down.
That actually literally gave me chills just referencing that. I remember Momo, but as a visual thing, but yeah, Lo is just a fascinating, not bug, but as you say, feature. You know what I mean? As a thumbprint of
it's in the human code.
It's in the human code, exactly. So going back to this experience, we're in May 2023, okay? So my colleague, photographer, photojournalist, he's an international member of staff, but has lived in Vietnam forever, absolutely loves the place and will likely stay here until forcibly removed. He was extending his practice through AI, right? So just general tinkering, really, the kind of just creative exploration that you reference in terms of the new Mid-Journey video model that gets people excited about new tech, right? When he experimented with AI image generation for his work, so images of Vietnam, his adopted home, he noticed that there was two very clear biases emerging. Pictures often showed either overt hypersexualization, almost exclusively of women, or images of war. And that's it. So here in Vietnam, as I stand, one of the most culturally rich, diverse, beautiful countries in the world, incredible food, art, landscapes, daily life. And the machine was largely seeing it through these two reductive Western lenses. This guy started incorporating his own authentic photography into his AI workflows, trained his own models, and found when he fed the system his local perspective, he could get much more accurate representations that he felt at least reflected the Vietnam he knew and loved. And so I guess I'd say think about that for a moment, right? So someone who's made Vietnam his home had to work around the machine's default assumptions to get authentic representations because the training data had reduced an entire nation to just these stereotypes, colonial era stereotypes. This isn't just about Vietnam. This is just one example of a pattern that's playing out globally. So around the same time, again, early mid-2023, Hugging Face and Leipzig University, they did a massive study. So using a few different popular image generating models at the time, they made 96,000 pictures of people across different ethnicities, genders, and professions. And probably there'd be no surprises in terms of what they showed, but there's a range of concerning biases, right? Because these models are trained on just enormous amounts of data scurried from the internet. And what it does is not just reflect existing stereotypes, but it amplifies them. One of the researchers spoke about this ending up with the thumbprint of the online American culture being perpetuated across the world. So the results, they were just staggering, right? So DALL-E, I was DALL-E 2 at the time, was when prompted with prompts like CEO or director, gave white men, 97% of the time. 97%. And then when companies tried to fix this, Google Gemini, back in the day of Bard and everything else, there was that disaster early 2024, created racially diverse 1940s German soldiers, right? A diverse group of, multiracial group of American founding fathers. They ended up having to apologize for, quote, missing the mark while trying to create, quote, a wide range of people. But Dale, it feels like there's no easy fix here, right? Every attempt to correct bias seems to create new problems. So what's your take?
I'm not saying that Google didn't do this in the initial Gemini approach, but isn't this just about getting the people who this impacts in the room to be understood, to be consulted, to input into these models, these conversations? I think Nick Askeladd a few years back, you were there. There was one one of the keynotes spoke to the erosion of Indigenous knowledge. And if these Indigenous people then access this knowledge from the very Western poisoned or Western influenced models, that it actually further erodes this. So there's definitely a greater good component here to ensure that the right people and knowledge sources are in the room when we're making these, I'm going to call they're generalizations, they're averages, that's what needs to be. And I think if we're doing something that is meant to be world changing, which a lot of these tech CEOs quote, there's a duty to make sure that the right people are in there to help change that world.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, when someone from outside of, let's say, a dominant training culture, training data culture, if you like, can't get authentic representations of their own country or culture, as you indicate, we're arguably seeing a form of cultural imperialism ultimated at scale. And then attempts to correct it create new problems. Taking this and turning it into action at the individual level, if we can, or at least maybe an organizational, because I mean, he is unique in having the skill set, the time, and the facility to be able to create his own models. But what we need is we need systematic ways to understand these tools as they evolve, right? This was my takeaway lesson. So I want to pitch an AI litmus test. Okay. Now, this isn't a new idea. Ethan Mollick at Wharton, the major at LSE, they've been calling for systematic AI evaluation with the AI litmus test. Mollick's famous also on a plane using Wi-Fi test. He's been, yeah, he's been tracking the same prompt across different models over the last couple of years and has just gone through dramatic process, right? From melted fur, this sort of, what did you call it? The spaghetti index, the Will Smith spaghetti index. Like you look at the progress there, but with it
Terrible uncanny valley to
to photorealistic video with sound is incredible. And given just how fast things are moving, perhaps developing your own benchmarks is a partial antidote, to this, or at least a method to at least try and keep up. So, framework: develop a set of prompts that matter to your context. Run them regularly as models update. Test AI representations of your field of expertise, your students' backgrounds, your local area, and document what changes between model versions, right? So, case in point, I've been doing a lot of work at the business school recently. A business professor might test how AI handles case studies about family-owned enterprises in Asia. Does it default to Western corporate structures? Can it understand different cultural approaches to business relationships and decision-making? The key is consistency, right? Mollick's Otter test is a great example because it also allows for this testing across different modalities. Bias can show up differently in text and images, interactive tools, and videos, right? Run the same prompts, maybe not monthly, but regularly. And then ask as well, different models or different labs. Does O3 from OpenAI handle these things differently from Sonnet 4 by Claude by Anthropic? And what's changed since the last update? The litmus test might include prompts about your discipline, your local context, current events, reasoning challenges, whatever matters for you and your students and how you will be using AI. Because the goal isn't to avoid it, it's to use it more thoughtfully with full awareness of its capabilities, its limitations, and its biases as they evolve.
it's like I always say, Nick, domain knowledge needs to be developed here. You can't actually know whether the AI is good unless you approach it from a point of your own domain knowledge. So yes, more litmus test.
I mean, universities are rapidly adopting these AI tools trained predominantly on Western data, while also serving increasingly diverse international student populations. At the same time, the tools are evolving so fast that policies written just 6 months ago let's just say it, they're outdated potentially. I'm fortunate to work at an international university in Vietnam, which gives me a unique perspective on this challenge. So we're actively grappling with how to thoughtfully integrate these technologies in these contexts, these international education contexts, while also being mindful of whose perspectives they center, potentially prefer, and how quickly their capabilities are shifting. Think about your international students sort of researching their own cultures through AI systems that may fundamentally misrepresent them. I mean, think about the academic integrity implications when AI help comes with embedded cultural assumptions that shift with each model update. I mean, again, most, at least speaking for myself, our context, but many in higher education, most of our students aren't from the dominant cultures represented in AI training data. And I would argue they deserve better than having their learning washed through systems that may not accurately reflect the realities. I've been on the Debbie Downer today. I mean, but I just want to say my function is around exploring these things and trying to do it eyes wide open, right? And I'm not about avoiding technology. This is about approaching AI integration with systematic evaluation. So turning this to action, I mean, this week, I'd say develop your own litmus tests, right? Choose 5 prompts, choose 3 that matter to your context and run them through whatever AI tools you're considering for your class, for your back of house use case, whatever it might be. Document the results. Then next month or month after that, run the same tests again. Then periodically run the same tests again. What changed? What new capabilities emerged? How did the representation shift? I would also say share this process with your students. Help them understand that these aren't static tools, that they are evolving systems that require ongoing evaluation. Here's an interesting question for you that I want to pose. Where do you think responsibility sits here, right? Individual educators, institutions, or do you think this is a broader question we should be demanding more from the AI companies themselves?
This is where I get pretty grumpy about the people downplaying AI literacy requirements because realistically, it's everyone's responsibility. And I appreciate that's a bit of a fluffy statement, but educators are doing themselves and their students a disservice for discounting AI in absolutely any discipline. I actually don't think there's any discipline that doesn't get impacted. Institutions who are not championing frameworks and tools and guidance are not considering their duty of care here. And everyone, yes, students who use these tools have an accountability to consider the impacts of what those interactions could be. So mental health impacts, the output that comes from that, and more, anything. Like these aren't just similar to a car with a license. These are things that need to probably be considered is that you have a duty of care of how you're interacting with them and the output that comes. We keep saying keep it human or stay the human in the loop. And this is how we do it. We take accountability for our interactions and our outputs.
To start to wrap up though, like, I mean, in terms of that, my colleague, I feel, shouldn't have had to work around these bias systems to get authentic representations of Vietnam. But until we reach that point, and as you say, we have responsibilities as educators to help our students understand not just how to use these tools, but to upskill them as well on how they can evaluate them, to give them that agency as they continue to evolve. So I'd say that the AI litmus test that I'm suggesting isn't just about bias. It's about developing ongoing awareness of what these systems can do, whose perspectives they reflect, and just how rapidly it's all changing. It's a time of agency now before these tools become even more embedded in our teaching.
Nick, I love this. This AI Litmus test is great. I'm going to build it for myself, but I think it's something I want to bring to my team and to people I speak to because I think how good is that as an onboarding to a new model to kind of establish I'm going to play with Claude, I'm going to play with Gemini, I'm going to play with whatever new tool that comes out. And isn't that a brilliant intro model to kind of go, and this is how it responds. This is where it's different. It's like a leveling test. So
Thank you.
well, listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please leave us a review, share it around with the network, and most of all, hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever platform you are at. We are on all your podcast platforms. For those who would love to see our faces, you can find us on YouTube too. We'd love to tell you what's on next week's episode, but it's a world that moves way too fast. So you'll just have to tune in. Until then, stay curious, stay intelligent, stay the human in the loop.
See you.